What's up, guys? I'm here with Austinhearies today. You're an MLW now. I saw you used to be in Ring of Honor, WWE, TNA. Out of all the companies that you've worked for, which one would you say is probably the one that you've liked the most?
Oh man, it's tough. I don't know that I liked one the most. I think they all were different. They all brought their positives. And I was in different parts of my career, right? So
Yeah.
I'll always feel like Ring of Honor was really super special for me. It's where I really cut my teeth. It's where I first kind of got exposed to a more national audience. Being the man to defeat Samoa Joe kind of put me on the map, and then getting in the ring. If you look back at the roster we had and what all those guys have gone on to do, some of the most talented professional wrestlers in the history, right? From the Daniel Bryans or Brian Danielsons, Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Nigel McGuinness, the Briscoes. I mean, on and on and on, right? You could list all these guys, and so yeah, just getting that opportunity was really special. And then TNA was special in its own right. They're becoming the world champion there, and getting to wrestle guys like Kurt Angle and Sting and Bully Ray and Bobby Roode and Jeff Hardy. And then WWE, right? WrestleMania, 70,000 people, the pinnacle of what we do in this industry. So I've been very, very fortunate, very grateful for all the opportunities I've had in each of those companies.
Who would you say that you have to thank for all of your success?
I mean, there's probably a list of people. I mean, first and foremost, I'll thank myself. I put the work in. I had the determination. I made the sacrifice. I've moved probably 30, 35 times in my life to always go where the action was, and really all the men and women that make it to the upper levels have to sacrifice and have to put the work in. It's not handed to us. We can have ability or we can have connections or whatever it might be, but we have to put the work in. But beyond that, man, I mean, every single person I've come in contact with, from the guys I just named and listed, who I got to get in the ring with to help me get better as a professional, to the guys behind the scenes, like the Eric Bischoffs and the Gabe Sapolskys, that gave me the opportunities to do these things. I mean, you could go on to I think some of the unsung heroes, the production guys. If the camera guy doesn't catch what you're doing on camera, nobody sees it, right? So
Oh
I've had
yeah.
work, I've worked with so many good production guys over the years that I've had good relationships with, to make sure that they always were filming me in the best light, to make sure that the things I was doing in the ring, people actually got to see. So it's a team effort, it really is a team effort. But at the end of the day, it always comes back to what are you willing to do? How much work are you willing to put in? How much sacrifice are you willing to give to make your dreams happen?
So what made you get the ring name Austin Aries? Was it just
So my zodiac sign is an Aries, right? Which is the ram, which can be a little stubborn, a little opinionated. I'm a fire sign, fiery personality, can be a bit emotional at times. So I really, when I dug into my zodiac sign and felt like, man, those are a lot of characteristics that I actually embody. And then honestly, I had my first match coming up, and I needed a name, and I didn't know how wrestling worked. I figured some promoter would just give me a new name at some point, but for this first match, I needed a name. So I remember like writing down a list. I liked the AA thing.
mhm.
So I started writing down a list of every A name I could think of. And I almost went with Aidenaries, because my real name is Daniel. So
Yeah.
Aiden. And but I ended up going with Austinhearies. I kind of liked the way it sounded. There was a wrestler by the name of Austin Idol back in the day. I liked that name. And so I picked Austinhearies. And if I'd known that it was going to stick for my entire 26-year career, I might have put a little more thought into it, and came up with something different. But here I am, 26 years later, still Austinhearies.
So you've been wrestling for 26 years, correct?
Yep, my 26th year. Yeah.
Who would you say has been the toughest opponent that you've faced?
Oh man. I mean, my toughest opponent's probably been myself, right? Like just not getting in my own way.
Yeah.
Not Sometimes you can take this a little too seriously. You know, as an artist, and from an artistic standpoint, you can sometimes your passion can work against you. But in the ring, you know, again, Brian Danielson pushed me a lot very early in my career. Samoa Joe. I think, you know, I think my toughest, you know, Kurt Angle, as far as a guy that was just legit and intense, and you can't fake it. You know, there's certain guys when you get in the ring with that you either are going to step up and you're going to deliver, or you're going to get exposed. And for me, Kurt Angle was one of those guys where it was a test to say, are you as good as you think you are? Because you can't bullshit your way through a Kurt Angle match. And so that was one guy that really like stood out. That really I had to up my game.
So we talked a little bit about your time in TNA. Uh, you were the longest, you still are the longest reigning X Division champion, but I saw that Leon Slater got pretty close there. Were you nervous that he was going to break it?
Uh, I wasn't nervous. I actually didn't even realize that I was the current record holder until he started pushing close to it. That's when all of a
Hmm.
sudden my social media feed started lighting up, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I had no idea that I was the longest reigning, which is, you know, pretty impressive when you think of the guys that have
Oh
held
yeah.
the title over the years, the AJ Styles and the Chris Sabins and the Alex Shelley's. I mean, there's just a laundry list of guys, you know. So yeah, to be in that to be in that category is special. But no, I wasn't nervous. I mean, listen, records are made to be broken, and I guess now I guess technically we're tied. You know, so Leon Slater is also the longest reigning X Division champion. He's just not sitting in that position by himself. We share that accolade for now until someone else comes along and breaks it.
It's definitely a good way to look at it.
Yeah, man. It's, you know, this is it's again, records are made to be broken. Every record in the history, at some point, someone's going to come along and beat it. Um, you know, there might be some that stand the test of time just because the industry changed. You know, I'm thinking back to like Bruno Sammartino's reign. I think
Oh
maybe,
yeah.
you know, he held the title for years and years and years. I don't know that we'll ever see that again because the industry is
Mm-mm.
different. Um, but no, man, like I didn't feel any certain way about it. You know, I honestly expected him to beat the record, and I was kind of surprised that he fell a day short. But you know, that's what happens sometimes. You know, you get in that pressure situation, and it doesn't quite go the way that you wanted to.
Yeah. I've heard rumors online and on social media that I don't think that he broke it because his contract's expiring or something. So
Oh, I thought he didn't break it because he lost the match to Cedric Alexander.
maybe a mixture of both.
Could be, maybe he was, you know, who knows, maybe he didn't have his head screwed on straight, and he maybe he underestimated Cedric Alexander, and he lost the match that night. Yeah, man, I'll be honest, I don't really keep up too much on the internet
Hmm.
news or rumors of wrestling. You know, that's just another form of entertainment for the fans to think that they know what's happening behind the scenes. But a lot of times, and I'll just say this quite frankly, the stuff that's being reported and the stuff that the fans read isn't necessarily the truth. It's the
Yeah.
version of the truth that people that they want the fans to believe, but very rarely is it the honest to God, transparent truth.
Yeah. You know, I've always told myself never believe what you see on the internet.
What's the old saying? Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
So if you were able to sign with any company right now, what company would you want to be with?
You know, I'm really happy doing what I'm doing. You know, I'm working with MLW full time, having a great amount of success there. I'm having fun there. I'm getting to have the freedom to do what I do best, and they have put the faith and trust in me to go out and deliver. And they're not getting in my way, and they're not micromanaging me, which is refreshing.
Yeah, you get that little bit of creative control that a little bit too.
I just, you know, I think sometimes, you know, when you're trusted to say, hey, we know what you can do, and we're not like, here's what we need from you, go do what you do.
Yeah.
Like that, like as an artist, sometimes that's all you want. Let me succeed or let me fail on my own merits. A lot of times guys fail not because of necessarily their own reasons, but it's because of people with a pencil and a piece of paper, set them up for failure. They don't put them in positions to succeed. So I've been enjoying my time with MLW. Their relationship with CMLL has now let me go down to Mexico a couple times. And that's been an awesome experience wrestling down there in Arena, Mexico, and their fan base is so passionate, and the talent down there is amazing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's making me learn. Even at 26 years, I'm now working more lucha libre style, which I haven't had a lot of experience in. So that's pushing me to become even better and more well-rounded. And so the nice thing is right now is I'm not locked under a contract with any company that keeps me from doing anything anywhere, right? So if there's an opportunity to go to New Japan, I could explore that. If there was an opportunity to do something with Ring of Honor, I could explore that. AEW, I could explore that. TNA, I can explore that. I
Hmm.
think that being a truly independent contractor, that's one of the benefits is I control my schedule, and I can control and take advantage of the opportunities that I feel are the best opportunities for me.
It really is great when you're able to actually do it like that and enjoy it.
Yeah. A lot of times we're called independent contractors, but you're under a contract where you're owned. And it's so this double standard, right?
Hmm.
From a legal standpoint, we're classified as independent contractors, but then the contract says we own you and you can't go do any of these things unless we say it's okay. So you're not really an independent contractor. You just don't get the benefits of being an employee. You don't get a 401k, you don't get health insurance, you don't get a retirement plan. But you're an independent contractor, and that's one of the things I've always had an issue with the pro wrestling industry is that's unfair and it's a bit predatory, and it's to the advantage of the companies and it's to the disadvantage of the talent. And I think that's something that needs to change.
For sure. I saw that WWE was also making a lot of people take pay cuts and
Yeah, and so be it. I mean, listen, that's part of any job. Sometimes you take a pay cut. Sometimes you have to rework your value, and that's an individual decision. Some people decide it's worth it. Some people would rather go elsewhere and try to make the same money elsewhere. So at the end of the day, this is the reality. The higher up you go in the corporate structure of pro wrestling, the more it's just business. It's just dollars and cents.
mhm.
And when you're a multinational conglomerate, the bottom line is always going to be the most important thing, more so than the talent, more so than the fans. It's always going to be the shareholders. Now, I personally, I have a different philosophy of life. That's probably why I haven't stuck around very long in the more corporate settings of pro wrestling. It's kind of like oil and water. We don't mix very well.
So, what do you think sets you aside from other wrestlers?
Ah, attention to detail, um, my passion for this, but I think, I think what just, not even just in wrestling, I have a very unique perspective of life, the way I see life. Um, I've kind of joked like, I've been vegan now for, close to 15 years. I've been plant-based for, 26 years. So that represents about 1 to 3% of the world, right? So only about 3% of the entire world has the same philosophy of I do of, hey, if I don't have to contribute to the suffering and to the pain and to the death of another sentient being that thinks and feels and has emotion, why would I do that? I don't want to be a part of that. And so that's part of my decision, right? I wouldn't kick a dog. I wouldn't slit the throat of a cow, right? And so
Mhm.
why do I want to pay somebody else to do that? I don't need to do it. I don't need it to live. I don't need it to be healthy, right? These are myths. I've been 26 years now. I haven't eaten animals, right? I have muscle. I'm an athlete. I'm healthy. So, but that philosophy is contrary to 97% of the rest of the world, right? So I already see the world differently. I'm left-handed, right? That means that I'm right brain dominant, right? So there's only 10% of the world that's left-handed, which means I think differently than 90% of the world, right? So like I across the board, and then this might even be my new moniker, right? Here's your exclusive. I'm an anomaly. I'm a walking anomaly. I don't fit into society's structure and boxes they want to place everybody in.
Mhm.
Right? I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I see politics like pro wrestling. It's theater, right? It's peas and carrots that come from the same farm. And they don't care if you're a peas person or you're a carrots person, and the carrots and the peas person, they yell and scream at each other. It's peas are the best. And the carrots people, yeah, no, carrots are the best. And meanwhile, the farmer laughs because he owns the peas and the carrots. And he doesn't care which one you pick because he owns it both. That to me is politics, right? So I
Yeah.
don't fit in either one of those boxes that most people, their ideology is attached to their political ideology. And they think everyone's either this or it's that. So I've always kind of walked my own path. Um, I don't fit into any group or society. I see the world differently. And I think when it comes to wrestling, that's part of the character that comes out. And it's part of why I think, I'm very polarizing. A lot of people don't like me because they don't really understand me, right? They want to put me in a box that you can't put me in. And so they make a lot of assumptions about me, right? And they jump to conclusions because they think, well, if you don't believe in this, then you must believe in that. If you don't support this, well, then you're anti that. And the world is, to me, is much more nuanced. It's not black and white, it's shades of gray, but most people don't think in shades of gray. They're very simple minded, and they think in a very binary way. And so I think when it comes to pro wrestling or just life in general, I'm a bit of an anomaly. I'm a bit of an enigma, and a lot of people can't really understand that.
So you just called out the open weight champion, Blue Panther. Is there any other championships that you're going after?
And they'll go after all of them. But you can only focus on one at a time, right?
Yeah.
The reason I like the open weight championship is, listen, I've been a world heavyweight champion multiple times in my career. I've never truly been a heavyweight. I think most people know that. I've never
Yeah.
been over 225 pounds. I'm not from a stature standpoint. I'm not very big in a big man's world, but I've been able to compete. I've been able to compete with much bigger men and people of all sizes in all shapes. And so what I like about the open weight championship is it opens that door for me, right? I don't have to just wrestle smaller athletic guys like the X division, right? Or like the cruiserweight division.
Mhm.
And I don't have to just wrestle big, 6'4", 250-pound heavyweights. The open weight championship says, hey, if you think you're the best, if you think you're better than me, any shape, any size, any weight, step in the ring and prove it. And I think that's where I thrive, right? Because from a psychological standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, everyone has the chink in the armor and everybody can be defeated if you have the proper game plan. And so that's why I like the openweight championship. And I want to bring some prestige back to that title. That's no offense to Blue Panther. He's a legend. What he's doing at his age is remarkable. I'm a huge fan.
Mhm.
However, I want to put my own stamp on the openweight championship, and I want to make it the world openweight championship, not just the national openweight championship. We're going to take this around the world once I win it.
Yeah. Uh I did a interview recently with the Big 400,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he was also going for that open weight championship. So
Hey, bring it on. We'll see who gets it first.
we'll see.
If I
Uh,
win it, I'll gladly give him a shot, and I'll give him a lesson free of charge.
I think the best thing about the open weight championship is it's open weight. Like it doesn't matter how much you weigh, you're basically able to prove that you're the best of the best.
Yeah, and it creates a lot of unique matchups, right? When it's the cruiserweight title, for example, the matchups are kind of the same. It's two guys that are similar style, similar sizes wrestling. When it's the heavyweight title, a lot of times it's the matchups are very the same. Guys that wrestle the same style, the same size. With the openweight championship, there's this opportunity to have really, really unique matchups with different styles and different sizes. And I think for fans, that's fun to see. I think back to like the very first like early UFC cards before they had weight divisions, and like some of the fun was seeing like Hoist Gracie, who was like 165 pounds, beating a guy that was 290 pounds just with his skill, and seeing
Yeah.
all these unique matchups. And so I think that with the openweight championship, there's the opportunity to do some of the same stuff.
Is there anything that fans probably don't know about you that they should know?
Oh, there's a lot about me that fans don't know, because what fans know about me is what they read online. And again, that's a skewed perception and an incomplete picture of really, what I am. Um, there's a lot of things that people think about me that's just incorrect. But um, I decided some time back that people are going to believe what they want to believe. Sometimes, even if the truth is put right in front of their face, they'll just deny it because they want to continue to believe their version.
Hmm.
And so I can't worry about that. The people who know me, and the people who don't. And it's that simple. But there's a lot, there's a lot more to me than what's on Reddit, message boards, or Twitter, or whatever it may be. But those people can live in that bubble and believe whatever version of Austinhearies they want to believe. It's okay with me.
I respect that, honestly.
I'll be whoever you want me to be. If you want me to be the villain in your story, then I'll be the villain in your story. But there's a lot of people, and fans especially, that have gotten to know me. People that have reached out to me for help, right? Whether it was going through depression, going through health issues, family issues. And just today I spent 3 hours on the phone with someone who he was a fan, and we connected through social media. Um, and he needed some advice on getting healthy and his food choices. And today I spent 3 hours on the phone with him to help him as much as I can. Um, my job is as Austinhearies is to entertain people, but the guy behind that is someone who wants to help people. And let's be honest, there's a large section of pro wrestling fans who unfortunately aren't very happy with their life. They're right, and that's why they spend so much time disappearing and being distracted in the world of pro wrestling, because their reality isn't quite what they want it to be, right? And they're not happy, or they're not healthy, or whatever it might be. And as someone who's gone through my own struggles and have dealt with those things, I can relate, and I have compassion for people in that situation. And so if I can help people by sharing my experiences or my knowledge or my philosophy on stuff, and it can help somebody, you know, that's really what's important to me. And one of my favorite quotes is from a philosopher named Ram Dass, and it says, "We're all just walking each other home." Right? We're all going to the same destination at the end of the day. We're all gonna take a different path to get there. Some people's path is gonna be easier than others, but we're all going to the same place, right? And so if we're all just helping walk each other there. And so if I can help someone's journey be a little easier, be a little happier, then I'm happy to do that.
Of course. I love that, honestly. Uh, is there anyone that you wish that you could have either faced or that you wish to face?
I always say Eddie Guerrero was one of my favorites. And just as another guy who, he wasn't the biggest guy in the fight, but man, he could go in the ring with anybody, and it was believable. And he was so talented, and he had so much range as a pro wrestler, right? He could be comedic, he could be nasty and mean. He could high fly. He could brawl, right? Like he could do
Hmm.
lucha. He could do main event. He like there was nothing he couldn't do. And he was just so good. And so that's a guy that I only met him once and had a brief conversation, but if I could have gotten in the ring with him, would have been amazing. Bobby Heenan is one of my favorite performers. So you know if I could have had the brain manage me at some point, that would have been cool. As far as current day, I don't know. I've been so lucky to face almost everybody that I've wanted to. I guess if there's one guy that stands out, that would be Chris Jericho, a guy that's still going, and a guy that I kind of looked up to early in my career, because again, another undersized guy who was, kind of pigeonholed as a cruiserweight, and then he broke out to become, a Hall of Famer and a main eventer and a world champion. Um, so I think that would be a phenomenal opportunity to do something with Chris. And then as far as a newer generation guy who I think has a lot of old school to him is MJF.
Oh yeah.
I think that there could be a lot of entertaining, promo work, and I have no doubt the matches would be fire, and the fans would get their money's worth for sure.
It would definitely be some really good promo work between you and MJF.
Yeah, man, he's got a special gift, man. He's got a special gift for sure.
Is there anyone that you wish that you could have teamed with? Or
The Horseman. I would have loved to have been a Horseman. Put me in there with Iron and Tully and Rick. You know, kick out Oli and they put me in there, right? I mean, I certainly could have taken Paul Roman's spot or Steve McMichaels. I mean, they had enough guys in there towards the end. I think I could have fit in somewhere. So yeah, if I could be a part of a team, I would, say, put me in the Horseman.
if you could start your own faction in MLW,
Mm.
who all would you want to be in it?
Ooh, good call. It's so tough because factions are difficult because while you're collectively working, there's always the inner turmoil of everybody wants to be the guy.
Yeah.
There's a guy right now in MLW, the world champion, Killer Cross, who at one time was in a faction with me in TNA, and I was the world champion, and he was maybe considered a background guy. And now look, now he's the man, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
would people like to see that faction rekindled with a couple of other guys? Could be interesting. He certainly doesn't need it. He's a man who can stand on his own, and I kind of feel the same way about me. I'm a man who can stand on his own, and because I'm such a unique personality and a bit of an anomaly, I have a hard time really connecting with other people. So that's where
Mm-hmm.
being in a faction can be a little difficult. I think the best faction for me would be to lead some younger guys that are trying to get to where I've gone, right? Um, and so I don't know exactly who that is per se, but I think that would make the most sense, or maybe you put me with the good brothers, and we could become the great brothers, the greatest brothers that ever lived. That might be a fun faction. That might be a fun group. Probably be cooler than the Bullet Club, to be honest.
Honestly, might be better than the skyscrapers out there.
Put me in the skyscrapers too, right? I'm big enough, right? That might be kind of fun. Start calling myself a skyscraper, at 5'9" in my boots, but consider myself a skyscraper. That would be a little tongue in cheek, right?
With you and Trevor Lee, you could not tell who was going
What
to
do you
win
mean?
at
I mean,
all.
everybody knew I was going to win the match. It's me.
I
Really?
don't,
People thought Trevor Lee was going to beat me? I mean, Trevor Lee's good. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying.
I don't know. I had all belief that you were going to win, but it
Well,
was
here's
a
the
great
difference.
match.
The difference between me and Trevor Lee is I don't know if Trevor Lee will stick his thumb in a guy's eye if he has to. I'll do whatever it takes to win. If I got to cheat, if I got to stick my thumb in your eye, then I stick my thumb in your eye. I'm not sure that Trevor Lee's at that point in his career where he'll do anything to win, And if you're not willing to do anything when you're in the ring with me, then you're going to lose. Same with Blue Panther, right? Sorry, Blue Panther, you've had a legendary career, but shine the belt up nice because when you step in the ring with me, you're going to be handing it over that night.
Uh, what do you think? Have you had the same finisher all your career? Or have you switched it up at all?
Well, early in my career, I used the 450 splash. The Brainbuster
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a setup, and then I would, hit the 450. Eventually, I felt like that was kind of a higher risk move that actually took a toll on my knees, and my body. So I worked harder to perfect the Brainbuster a little bit better, and then I kind of hit that running drop kick in the corner. is kind of a setup, right? So when I was able to kind of start comboing those things together, the drop kick into the brain buster, I was able to start, putting guys away with that and having that as my finish. And then just perfecting the last chancery submission, which is basically a head and arm choke with a bridge. And so, I think it's important having a submission finish and then having a secondary finish because listen, there's some guys I've faced like, that I'm not positive I can get up for a brain buster. Like when I wrestle a guy like Samoa Joe or a Bully Ray, you don't know for sure, especially when you're 20 minutes into a match and you're fatigued and you're tired and you're beaten up. Am I going to be able to get this guy up? So having a submission finish is great because it's something that you can put on anybody at any point. So I think it's important to have a couple of different ways that you can beat somebody.
I definitely believe that too. I've thought a lot about like if I was a wrestler, what kind of finisher I would
Yeah.
want. And I don't know, like I would want something kind of original. Like
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought
there's
about
nothing. There ain't a whole lot of original anymore. Everything's stolen or borrowed from somebody else, right?
I don't
That's
know, I thought about a springboard spear. I thought that that would be pretty cool.
yeah. But again, it's cool, but risk reward,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a lot of ways to counter that. Or again, what if you don't hit the springboard and you slip or you fall, right? There's a higher there's a higher percentage of messing it up when you start doing things. Same with the 450, which is why I moved away from it. It's not an easy move to pull off. It's not a guarantee you're going to hit it perfect every time. So sometimes it's about things that you can perfect and be consistent in. Now you use the springboard spear maybe in your moves throughout the match to soften the guy up, but you don't rely on it as a finish because it
Mhm.
has a high degree of difficulty and a high degree of failure, to be quite honest. Yeah. How old are
So
you? How old are you, if I may ask?
I'm 23.
Oh, you're young. You're a baby. You gonna try to get into pro wrestling?
I don't know, I've thought about it. Definitely
Yep.
considered it.
Yep. I mean, you're still young enough, man. I started at 22, so you know, if it's something you want to do, go after it. Um, you know, I see. I spied your Instagram a little bit before we hopped on here. I saw you lifting some weights and moving some weight in the gym, and so
I used
build.
to wrestle back in high school too, so
Okay. Well, find a good school, find a good trainer, and if it's something that lights you up and fires you up, go for it. Absolutely.
so what made you start getting into wrestling?
I went to college a couple of years and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. At 2022, and luckily I had a childhood friend who called me up kind of out of the blue and told me he was trained to be a wrestler. And I grew up a huge wrestling fan since like the age of 4. When I first saw the AWA, and so I grew up like loving wrestling and watching as much of it as I could. I never thought about how to get into it because before the internet, that wasn't information that was readily available. You didn't know there was wrestling schools. You kind of had to know somebody who knew somebody. It was a little more
Mhm.
protected. So the fact that I was like, what? I could, like you're trained to be a wrestler. I got to come check this out. And I went to Minneapolis, and there was a guy named Eddie Sharkey who was running the school who would train the Road Warriors and Rick Rude and Sean Waltman and Jerry Lynn. A lot of these guys came through that area. And man, once I saw that ring set up in the garage and knew that this was a possibility, that's what I did. I moved up on my buddy's couch and I gave half the money I had to my name to as a down payment, and I started training.
That's awesome. It's definitely really fun to hear a bunch of different people's stories.
Yeah, man, it's everyone has a good story of how you get in and sacrifice. There was no GoFundMe, at that time, so I was given plasma twice a week to make $50, and then I was working temp jobs until I found a decent gig waiting tables, during the week, so that I had my weekends open to go wrestle and whatever I had to do to chase it. Like it was never too much because I was getting to do this thing that I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, it's never easy either.
It's nope, it certainly isn't. Hey, I just want to let you know, I just saw the 1 minute warning up on the
Yeah.
screen. So I don't know if we have a time limit on this or not, or if we're going to hop back on.
Uh, I think, I mean, we can hop back on. I just will have to figure out how to do that. So,
Okay, yeah, totally up to you. I just wanted to
uh,
let you know so we didn't get cut off mid sentence.
all right, I'm gonna stop the recording real quick.
Okay.
So, do you watch any like sports or anything? Do you keep up with any other sports?
Yeah, I grew up, I grew up in Wisconsin, so that's Packer country. It's kind of a religion there. So I grew up watching the Packers, and I grew up as a baseball player. I actually went to college as a left-handed pitcher, and so I follow the Milwaukee Brewers, and I follow the Milwaukee Bucks. So I kind of follow the three main sports. I've always kind of, I grew up an athlete, and playing different sports, and so yeah, I just was kind of how I was brought up, and I still kind of follow to this day. Yeah.
I'm a Timberwolves fan, so
Are you okay? Yeah, man. There's been some grumblings of maybe trading Giannis to the T Wolves, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I hope so, but
Yeah.
never know.
It sounds like he's going to the Heat, but who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
So does that mean you're a Vikings fan?
No, I'm
Okay, good. We can still be friends.
my fiance is a Dolphins fan, so
Okay.
I kind of have that, and then I'm a Steelers fan, so
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I like the Steelers. Steelers are like the Packers of the AFC.
hmm the Dolphins aren't that good right now, so
Haven't really been good most of my life, to be honest. Yeah.
I you said you've been wrestling for 26 years. I'm only 23. That's
Yeah.
crazy to think you've been wrestling longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, you were -3 when I had my first match. Yeah. You weren't even a little twinge in your daddy's ball sack when I had my first match. Yeah.
What's been the favorite city or state or place that you've traveled to?
Man, Australia was beautiful. I got to Peru was cool. Got to go to Machu Picchu. I did a independent show in Peru, and then I stayed an extra day and went and saw Machu Picchu. I think that's the greatest thing wrestling's done for me is allowed me to travel the world and get to have conversations with people from different backgrounds and different races and different ethnicities and countries and languages and upbringing. And so the more you get to do that and you get out of the US bubble, the more you start to realize that really human beings, we're far more alike than we are different. Like at the core, we really want the same things, right? We want family, we want stability, we want love, we want to just be happy and have security. Um, and so that's really shaped my worldview and really who I am as a person is all these opportunities to travel to all these places that nobody that I knew growing up had really gone and traveled to a bunch of other countries. So again, you start comparing that experience with what the news tells you about people or places, and you realize, wait a second, like I've been here, it's nothing like that. So they take a very narrow scope of what things are to kind of paint a picture. Japan was really interesting place to go and wrestle. It's just man, I've been so lucky to have been so many places. I don't think I have a favorite. I'm one of those guys. I don't really have a favorite. I kind of appreciate everything for what it brings. Brings
Yeah.
things are different. There's certainly places I don't love, but I don't really necessarily have favorites.
So, y'all came to Chattanooga not too long ago.
Yeah.
Did you get to explore the city at all, or
Yeah, a little bit. And I haven't really been to Chattanooga, maybe passing through, but never really spent time there. And the hotel we stayed at was actually downtown.
Mhm.
And yeah, it had a really cool vibe down there. I walked around a little bit, and um, yeah, it was really cool. And I was like, oh man, I want to come back here like when I have some free time and check it out. I kind of dug the vibe for sure.
I mean, that's where I've been born and raised, so it's all
Yeah.
I really know. So
Yeah. Have you got a chance to get out of Tennessee much and explore other places?
yeah, I've went to a couple of places.
Yeah.
I've been quite a bit, not really out of the country much, but
Yeah. I mean, I highly recommend it. Listen, when I was your age, I hadn't been out of the country either. You know, I think I just got to start like doing a little traveling to like the West Coast. I think it was like 2021, and I got to hang out in like Lake Havasu, Arizona, and LA, and Texas, and Phoenix. And I grew up in the Midwest, so I'd never really spent much time in any other part of the country. So even that was kind of eye opening, and like meeting people from different places and different climate, and it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And you start to realize like how big the world is, and like how many places there are out there to explore. And I think it's like one of the best things, especially when we're younger, that we can do before we kind of root ourselves in with family and kids and all these things, like when we still have a little bit of freedom, is get out there and explore the world, man. See all the great things that are out there, and really start to shape your worldview and think about things from a larger radius than just the town you grew up in. Because I grew up in a town where everyone in that town, nobody left. Like when I went to my 10-year high school reunion, it was like, these people still, they were, the reunion was at the same bar that they all went to every week anyway. Right. And like, at that time I was on TV, I was traveling, like it was a big deal. Like, oh wow, like, it's the big, it's like, man, you gotta get out there and explore the world. There's a lot out there, and
mhm.
yeah, man, I'd certainly encourage you to be able to do that if you have the opportunity.
So you have been basically all over the world. You're basically world famous practically.
I mean, famous to a small subsection of people, I suppose. Yeah.
Wrestling fans you're basically famous
Right.
with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh what what would you mark as like your I made it like kind of moment?
Mm. I mean, there's probably some different ones. I think the one that most people would recognize is like, walking out at WrestleMania.
Mhm.
That's kind of the pinnacle of our industry. And so to be the first thing to walk out WrestleMania 33 and see 70,000 people, including my family and friends out there. I had in my own mind made it before then, because my goal when I started this was just to be able to pay my bills doing this. It was better
Yeah.
than waiting tables. I was a waiter and a bartender. I was like, well, if I can pay my bills doing this instead of, slinging drinks or waiting tables, like that's a victory. That was really my goal. It wasn't to be famous, wasn't to be on TV, it wasn't to do any of those things. It was just when someone says, yeah, what do you do for a living? I go, I'm a professional wrestler. That's, how I pay my bills. So I had accomplished that, it was probably about, once I started working for Ring of Honor, 4 or 5 years in, I was able to quit all my side jobs and become a full-time pro wrestler. Then it was like 10 years in my tenure at TNA, when I won the world title there, where I really felt like, oh, now I'm actually making like real money, where I'm like able to like save up and
Yeah.
buy a house and do all these things. So it was like, so that was kind of like the first, like, ooh, you made it, because like not only are you paying your bills, but you have some left over to save up and feel like, okay, I'm getting ahead in life. I'm not just kind of treading water. And then yeah, WrestleMania was kind of the culmination. I was 18 years into my career, at that point, and it was like, oh, cool. Like, very, out of everyone who ever tries to do this, the amount of people who ever get the opportunity to step out for a WrestleMania is very, very small, and so there was a lot of gratitude in that moment.
Does it make you nervous walking out? Did it make you nervous walking out there in front of 70,000 people?
Weirdly, it didn't, you know. Yeah, I don't. I'm trying to think of the last time I've been nervous. I don't get nervous like outside of like normal nerves, but like no. If anything, like I felt comfortable. You know what? Sometimes it's funny. it can be more intimidating working in front of smaller crowd in a more intimate setting because you're so up close to everybody.
Yeah.
But when you're in a big sea of people, it's like everyone's there, but no one's there. You're not close enough to really make eye contact with people and really be up close. It's just kind of this sea of people. And I've talked to like comedian friends of mine and musician friends, and they kind of say the same thing. Like sometimes those smaller, intimate venues where you're face to face and there's only a couple hundred people in there, that can almost be more unnerving because you're so close to it. When there's 70,000 people there, it's like, and there's so much energy coming your way, so you feel in the energy of this crowd and then you're just feeding off of that. And so I'm like, no, I wasn't. I was just fired up. I was just fired up. Yeah.
How many days a week would you say you like work out and all that to be able to prepare for?
You know, depending on the week, depending if I have any injuries I'm nursing. Like I injured my foot here not that long ago on a tour in Canada, and that kind of put me on the shelf for a little while. But now, I'm back in my groove. Five 5 to 6 days a week. I'll typically like do 4 or 5 days in a row, and then give myself a day or two off, and then do another 4 or 5 days in a row, then give myself a day or two off. Just try to be consistent with that. Same with my eating, tracking all my calories and making sure I'm keeping my diet where it needs to be. Um, and so yeah, and then even the days that I'm off, I'm not in the gym. I'll run across the street to the beach and you know maybe do some stretching or just do some other kind of stuff. So I think just for me, like just being active is important as I get older. I'm 48 now, so um, you don't want to assume you just keep flexibility or you keep strength. And
Yeah.
so if you don't use it, you lose it, is the old saying. So it's like I want to keep using it so that I keep it as long as I can. I say I'm in a battle with Father Time right now, and I know he's going to win eventually, but I'm going to give him a run for his money. I'm going to make him work for it.
Do you have any upcoming matches that you're looking forward to?
Well, yeah, we got in a couple weeks we're going to be MLW. We'll be having a triple shot, so we're going to be in New York City, and then we're going to be in the ECW arena back-to-back nights, and so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be heading to Newfoundland, Canada, which is like the furthest eastern point of Canada. It's actually closer to Greenland than it is to it's like to anything else. So, and it's like its own little island.
Hmm.
I've never been there, and after 25 years, 26 years to go places you've never been, like that's kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to that. Later in the year, I have a tournament scheduled in Germany, so I'll be heading to Germany for a weekend. That's going to be cool. Um, Try to think. Yeah, I've just got some other stuff lined up. Having some discussions with CMLL about hopefully getting back down to Mexico at some point. So hopefully, get to do that. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun right now. And that's again the cool thing, Mike. Being your own boss is you get to go the places you want to go and you get to make your own schedule. And like, when I'm in Germany, I'm going to extend my trip and I'm going to go to Spain for a week or two, and my girlfriend lives over in Spain. So if I'm going to be in Germany for a couple days and I'm going to fly all the way over there, then I might as well go hang out in Spain for a week or two afterwards. And I get
Might
to
as
make that
well.
decision because again, I make my schedule, I book my travel and that's one of the perks of my job.
So, do the companies that y'all work for, like, do they pay for travel or do y'all have to?
No, they cover expenses for travel. I usually, for me personally, I kind of roll everything into like one flat fee, and then I handle my travel out of that fee, but I've already kind of factored it in. So if like flight's going to be $500, I'll just factor that into my rate for the show, and then just give them a flat number and go, yeah, for this much money, I'll buy my flight, you get my hotel, and I'll see you there. So yeah, I just started booking my travel a number of years ago because it just made it easier for everybody. Promoters have enough stuff that they're trying to worry about and coordinate, and so to give them one less thing to worry about, I know where I'm flying out of. I know where I need to fly into. I know the carriers I like to fly, and it just makes it easier for everybody.
Who would you say is probably the most dangerous wrestler that you've faced?
Dangerous is in like not very good and he might hurt you.
Yes.
um, I have to think back, probably the Necro Butcher. And I love Dylan. I love the Necro Butcher, but he's blind as a bat. And so when he doesn't have his glasses on and he's punching you, eventually I told him, hey man, do me a favor, aim for my ear because wherever you're aiming now, you keep hitting me in the ear. So aim for my ear. So hopefully you hit me somewhere better than that. And it wasn't because he was malicious or anything. It was just like, man, like he just was blind. Another guy was Kenta. For some reason, I don't know if he doesn't like me. I know he's super physical. We've had a couple physical matches, but man, like I haven't had my eardrum popped more times by any wrestler than by Kenta. So, and a hell of a talent and super intense guy. But I never left a match with him like whole, so to speak. I always got beat up somehow.
So they have all these different kinds of matches, tables, ladders. What's your favorite kind of match that you've been in?
It's a good old wrestling match.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, I'm kind of an old school traditionalist. Give me a good wrestling match. I've enjoyed like 2 out of 3 falls matches. I've had some of those over the years. But as far as like gimmick matches, like tables and ladders, I'm not a huge fan. I never have been. Um, if it makes sense, if it's a feud, one of my favorite programs I've ever done was with Jimmy Jacobs and Ring of Honor. We kind of had a blood feud. We had a dog collar match. It ended in an I quit match. But it made sense for the feud. It made sense for where we were. It wasn't just done for the sake of doing it. It was built up, and like each match progressed, and there was this real blood feud. And so we blew it off with an I quit match, and it was super intense, and it was different than a lot of what I had done before then. Um, but for me, give me a good one-on-one. 2 men in the ring trying to prove that they're the better man. For the winner's purse, and we don't need any gimmicks. We can just get in there and entertain people with good wrestling. Yeah, like the Trevor Lee match, man. Like we didn't use any weapons. We weren't doing things on the floor. It was pretty much almost all in the ring until the very end. And I think that everything that I'm seeing feedback wise, very well received. People like, oh yeah, that was a good wrestling match, and unfortunately, like you're not getting a lot of that these days. There's a lot more of the gimmick stuff and the shock and awe, and that's fine. That's its own lane of entertainment. But I think there's an art to be able to just take 2 men, 15 minutes in the ring and entertain people with good pro wrestling, create drama, create emotion of who's going to win. Two guys, leaving it all in the ring to prove that they're the better man that night on the fly. And that's just, again, that's kind of what we do.
What do you think is the worst injury that you've ever had?
Ooh. Um, Visually, when I got my orbital bone fractured here, and I still have a scar down here. My whole orbital bone was fractured. I got a plate in my face. That visually looked the worst. It didn't actually hurt very bad, but it looked brutal. Right now, Shinsuke Nakamura just he kicked me and just caught me with his toe right in the eye, and it just shattered
Ugh.
my orbital bone. But the most painful, I leading up to my world title victory in TNA. I was wrestling a match with Samoa Joe, and just got caught with something, the island driver, and I ended up tearing a disc in my lower back. It's called an annular tear, and it was in my lower disc, and it would shoot like nerve pain all the way like through my ball sack all the way down my legs. Um, and I couldn't, and I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want. I knew I was getting pushed, right? I knew like I had a chance to become the world champion. I was getting bigger
Yeah.
and bigger matches, and I wasn't gonna tell anyone that I was injured and all of a sudden have that go away. So I just, luckily for me, I was friends with Hulk, and he knew what was going on, and he turned me on to like one of his pain management guys, and I was going and I was getting worked on like massage like a couple times a week just so I could walk and I could get through this. But like I couldn't lift weights, I couldn't lay on a bench, I couldn't hardly do anything. but I just kind of gutted through it. And I think one of my proudest moments in wrestling was my ladder match with Jeff Hardy because I was really, really not in good shape. Like my back was really, really bad. I was in a lot of pain, and I was still able to get through that match. And just with perseverance and grit in my teeth. So that by far was like the worst injury I had because um, it lasted a long time before it really healed. And it came at a time where I really couldn't afford to take any time off. So I just had to push through it. And nerve pain, if you've never had nerve pain, it's unlike other pain, right? Like, I've tore muscles or, ligaments and things like that. I've broken ribs, I've bruised ribs, I've, had neck issues. But when you get nerve pain, it's different and it's constant and it just kind of gnaws at you. And this one being in the lower back, it was affecting everything. It was, affecting my whole lower extremities and it was not a lot of fun. Yeah.
Does not sound like it was fun.
No, man, not at all. Yeah. And like this last foot injury I had was kind of something I haven't dealt with. And like I was on a cane. I had to walk with a cane for almost a month. And actually the MLW shows in Chattanooga, like luckily I was in a 6-man tag because I wasn't in condition to wrestle. Like I couldn't walk, much less run or jump or anything. But because I was in a tag match, I was able to kind of hide it enough and let my opponents kind of do the heavy lifting, and I was able to kind of gut through it. But that one probably shelved me for close to 2 months, and I've just recently, and it's still bothering me a little bit, but it's not hindering me in my day to day. But it still hasn't healed, and I think part of that is just being older. Things don't heal as fast at 48 as they do at 28, and that's just it's just the way of life. So it's taken a little longer to get healthy. And then foot injuries are difficult because you can't not walk on it. It's really hard to just not use it for any length of time, so it constantly kind of gets re-aggravated. So it's been slow healing, and that wasn't fun either. But by far the lower disc tear, that was bad. I had a bulge disc in my neck when WWE released me. I wasn't healthy. I had a hernia disc in my neck. I'd been getting cortisone shots, and I was losing feeling in my hands. That wasn't fun either. Again, and at that level, you got to push through it. You can't take time off, and that's one of the things about this industry. Um, you know, most of us who have been doing this for any length of time, we've all had to work injured. We've all had to work hurt. It's part of the game. We don't have the luxury, at least historically, to take time off, because if you're taking time off, you're not making money, and someone else is going to try to take your spot.
Who would you say is probably one of the like the best people that you've tagged with? Like y'all had the most chemistry and y'all were just able to do it so easily.
Well, back in the day in Ring of Honor, me and Roderick Strong, I thought we really complimented each other well, and you know, and I love Roddy as a person, and we were both at a place in our career where we were hungry to prove ourselves, and I think that helped as a team.
Hmm.
Later on in my career, Bobby Roode was a guy that I really clicked with, whether it was as an opponent or when we teamed up as the Dirty Heels. Um, just kind of felt really natural, and he's such a good tag wrestler to begin with. He had a lot of tag success with Beer Money, and so he really understood tag wrestling, and yeah, we just gelled really well, and it was kind of like this. We were partners, but we also had this kind of rivalry going at the same time to prove who was better. So it created a really unique dynamic between us that I thought was a lot of fun.
Do you like playing the a face or a heel better?
I think that I'm more comfortable in the antagonist role. I don't need I don't need the people cheering for me. Like my ego doesn't need that. I don't need people like, putting me on the pedestal and cheering for me. There's a satisfaction I get out of the satisfaction I can give the fans by being beat. I say in real life, a lot of times the bad guys win, right? In real
Hmm.
life, the bad guys win. The guys that are willing to cheat, cut corners, You know, a lot of times they end up on top. And so in wrestling, I have this opportunity to embody all these negative things that I see in the world and these negative traits, you know, that people have. And I get to be all of that, knowing that in the end, when it's time for me to get what I deserve, that some of my favorite moments in wrestling is laying on the mat in defeat, listening to how happy the fans are that Austinhearies just got what he deserved. Somebody shut that little MFer's mouth up. Somebody finally kicked his ass, right? He deserved that. And so for me, there's a magic there. And not everybody likes to, a lot of guys, they want to be the hero. They want to be the guy that everyone claps for. They chant the name. I was always much more comfortable being the foil, being the guy that got under your skin and that made you so happy when he finally got smacked in the mouth and got what he deserved. And so I've always enjoyed that role because ultimately I like making people happy. I just realized I can make him happier being that guy than being the hero. Yeah.
Do you have any other hobbies other than wrestling?
I mean, I love the beach. I try to spend as much time at the beach as I can. You know, I just started growing my own food. You know, growing peppers and tomatoes and basil and oregano, and I got sprouts and microgreens going. You know, I play music. I play the djembe, which is a drum. I have a hand pan, which is like a steel drum. I play a little bit of guitar. I sing a little bit in the band. Um, you know, and I'm really big into like food literacy, like understanding the food system. Cooking, I love to cook. And I'm working on my second book, which is going to be a guide and a manual that's going to go with a mentorship coaching program for people who want to learn food literacy and become healthier with their food choices and really understand, like, you know, I want to teach people like how to be their own master, you know, not have to rely on somebody else to do it for them, but really cut through all the bullshit and the propaganda when it comes to food and really help people understand the choices they have and what the impact of those choices are, and kind of empower people to be able to make those informed decisions for their best interests.
What's your favorite kind of food that you've made for yourself?
Oh man, I love all, like my favorite guilty pleasure has always been pizza. And you know, I just had a great vegan pizza. I call it animal lovers pizza, right? Meat lovers pizza is, I actually call animal haters pizza. That's what it really is. It's not meat lovers, it's animal haters. So it's an animal haters pizza. So vegan pizza is animal lovers pizza because nothing had to be hurt or slaughtered for me to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy pizza, right? So I love making a good vegan pizza. You can make cheese out of cashews, and all sorts of different things. You know, they make vegan cheeses out of like coconut oil and potato starch. So there's a lot of alternatives. So you can enjoy the pizza without all the animal products on it. You know, I love smoothies. I love fruit. I eat a lot of fruit. I eat a lot of fruit. One of my favorite salads is watermelon and yellow mustard. And I know it sounds weird, but if you like mustard, it's delicious. It's like sweet and tangy and savory. So I'll like cube up watermelon, preferably seeded organic watermelon if you can find it. And then mix it just with yellow mustard, and I'll sprinkle some hemp hearts on top for a little bit of fat and protein. And it's delicious. It's really, really good. And it sounds strange, but like it's one of my favorite like salads to make in the summer for sure.
It does sound strange, but
It's the first time I read it, I was like, what? Yellow mustard and watermelon. I was like, who would eat that? I was like, all right, I got to try this. And then I mixed it up. And I was like, God damn, that's really good. It's almost like a honey mustard because the sweetness of the watermelon with that
mm-hmm.
mustard mixed, it was like, oh, this is actually really tasty. And if I really want to do it up, I'll thinly shave some like red onions, and then I'll chop up some fresh mint and kind of mix that all together with the yellow mustard, and yeah, it's really tasty and really good for you. Really healthy, you know. Man, I could do a whole hour just on food I like to eat, man. Another one of my favorites is dates. You ever had like Maduhol dates? You take date and you put a couple of pieces of dark chocolate in there, and you put a little dollop of peanut butter, and it tastes like a Snickers bar, but it's 10 times better for you, way healthier. Yeah. Like that's one of my passions is like reverse engineering all these foods I grew up eating that I liked that I later found out was really, really unhealthy for me. And it's like,
Mhm.
how can I recreate that and make it healthier and make it better for me? And so like, yeah, I really enjoy cooking and doing things like that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it pays me back. I'm investing in my health.
Yeah.
Like again, I'm 48 years old. I've been plant-based for 26 years. And a lot of people would tell you that you can't have muscle if you don't eat animals. You can't be healthy. And I'm like, well, I don't know, but whatever I'm doing, I feel like it's working. My blood works really good. My testosterone levels are through the roof. I still have good muscle mass. I'm still moving well in the ring. I don't have arthritis or aches or pains after what I've done for 26 years. Like I feel really, really good. And it goes against conventional wisdom of how you're supposed to eat. And so like I'm living proof that you can abstain from eating animals and animal products and not only be healthy, but like you can thrive, and you can be a high level athlete and you can do these things, but you have to take ownership of your choices that you make each and every day, you know.
Has there ever been a time that you got uh released or injured or anything that you just thought that your career was over?
Um, Not necessarily. I had a moment in 2009 where I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels and I wasn't able to get some opportunities that I wanted, and so I just I didn't make any big announcements. I just kind of mentally took a step back and kind of focused my energy in some other areas. Like, hey, maybe I'm gonna have to get like a conventional job. Like maybe I'll get my personal training certification and maybe do that. If wrestling's not going to pan out, like I was making enough money to like pay the bills, but I wasn't getting ahead. And I was like, man, like physically, like this takes a toll, and I don't want to end up being 50 years old and I don't have any money to show for this. 2020, I, there was kind of a perfect storm of a bunch of different things that happened at once. And it kind of, I say, like, kind of forced me out of the wrestling bubble for the first time in my adult life. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of lived in that bubble and kind of like, my whole identity was wrapped around Austinhearies and pro wrestling, you
Yeah.
know. And because at 22 years old, when I started this journey, like I had never gone through that process of understanding who Daniel was, right? And so now you become this persona, and you start getting, successful and famous, and you start making money, and you're on TV, and now everyone that knows you as Austinhearies, and now it becomes your life, all your relationships, all your friendships, all the people everything is wrestling, wrestling, wrestling. And I kind of lost myself in that. And so I took like almost 2 years off, like a year and a half off. I went to Mexico. I sold all my stuff here. It was in the midst of COVID, so everything was kind of weird anyway in this country. And I just checked out, and I went and did some self discovery and worked on myself and figured out who I was. If all this wrestling stuff goes away, who are you, and are you going to be okay? And that was probably the best thing I ever did in my life. And the person I am today is so drastically different than the person I was in 2019 and before. And it's allowed me to come back in wrestling and just with a much better perspective, and just being in a better place. And it just puts things in perspective of what's really important. Pro wrestling's cool, but it's not real. It's not important. It's kind of silly. And so I can take it seriously to a point, and I can try to do it to the best of my abilities. But at the end of the day, it's not everything that I am. It's not my complete and total identity. And I can't always say that that was the case. So um, yeah, I think that was really important for me.
So whenever someone buys like merch with your name on it, do you get the proceeds or does it go to the company that you work for?
Well, it depends. Like MLW, for example, like they make the shirts, they produce them, so then I just get a percentage of it.
Mhm.
But on most independent shows, I bring my own merchandise, and that's mine. So whether it's my action figures or my trading cards or my books or T-shirts or 8x10s, like I'm in control of that stuff. With a place like MLW, because they're making the shirts, they're putting them on their website, they package them, they sell them. I don't have to do anything. Then there's a split in the profit there for sure.
Yeah, I was actually at a flea market the other day, and I actually found one of your action figures, and I bought it, so
Oh, did you? Was it still in the box?
it was not,
Hard to
unfortunately.
find them in the box. I bought them all. I bought them. I basically bought them all off of eBay, so they're hard to find now. Yeah.
Mhm. Is there anything that you wanna be able to say before we end it?
No, man, it's been great talking with you, and I wish you success in your journey, whether it's podcasting or becoming a professional wrestler yourself. And anyone who wants to follow me, I'm mostly on my Instagram. It's Austinhealyaries. That's where I post most of my wrestling content. And yeah, happiness is a choice, and choose happy.
Link to his Instagram will be in the description, guys. All
Very.
right.
Thanks, man.
Of course.